to share some of the findings of my independent research project done under the guidance of Dr. Nicole Mountford. This is a contemporary archaeology project done at the San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree in Anza Borrego Desert State Park, which is the ancestral lands of the Kumeyaay. So a logical place to start this discussion would be to answer the question, what's a shoe tree? Shoe trees are public installations composed of visitor shoes that are hung on trees. Folklorist Lynn McNeil categorizes them as serial collaborative creations, likening them to geocaches or impromptu shrines and memorials. Shoe trees are found around the world, and they are usually unauthorized installations, but they're infrequently policed. Once accepted by the community, shoe trees will often reestablish themselves in a larger capacity once removed. There's much discussion about them in general culture, but surprisingly little formal analysis of their environmental impacts, their archaeology, and their cultural significance. This project hopes to start that conversation by looking at the San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree as a case study. So the San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree is constructed on a 25-foot tall dead honeysuckle tree. It's located in San Diego County on Highway S2, near the small town of Shelter Valley. This area has a rich cultural history in a migratory corridor near the Butterfield Stage Station Monument, the Pacific Crest Trail, and several important Kumeyaay sites. The tree started sometime after 2011, and it's reported to be the second installation in the area after the first was lost to a storm. The tree sits in a land management gray area between County Roads jurisdiction and California State Parks wilderness. Colorado Desert District archaeologist Haley Elskin says these types of installations also tend to live in a gray area where they're not condoned by state parks, but they're also not immediately removed if they don't pose a threat to park resources. So a little theory, the San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree can be conceptualized by blending the theories of anthropologist Victor Turner and human geographer Yi Fu Tuan to create a liminal place. Victor Turner defines liminality as something that's neither here nor there. It's an area of transition, a dialectic between structure and anti-structure. The San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree literally exists in the state, where it sits on the line between land management jurisdictions, in a migratory route used since time immemorial, and in a transition zone between the mountains and the desert. The tree itself is in transition. It's dead, but it's still standing. Turner explains that individuals transitioning through liminal states become liminal entities who are void of status, name, and social rank. They act in a passive way. They are, as he describes, a blend of lowliness and sacredness, which in this case might be represented by both people and shoes. The connections formed between these liminal entities creates communitas, defined by Dara Downey in her book Landscapes of Liminality as a community without frontiers. Human geographer Yi Fu Tuan's concepts of space and place work well with these ideas. Tuan defines space as an open and undefined expanse, and place as something that rises out of space and becomes differentiated due to human experience, emotions, and connections. When the two are combined, we see how it's possible for the tree to continue to persist in Turner's liminal state, which is inherently temporary, because adding shoes to the tree as an act of communitas reinforces the human experiences that makes it a place, while the tentative quality of the site itself in a land management gray area and as an unauthorized installation continues to reinforce its liminality. So how does one do archaeology on a site like this, especially when things are consistently coming and going? To answer this question, I look to archaeologists who study contemporary North America, like Carolyn White, Jason De Leon, and William Carragher, so I might get an idea of how to approach what Dr. White terms active site archaeology. As part of my methodological approach, I collected interviews and oral histories from people familiar with the tree, including Shelter Valley locals and California State Parks employees and volunteers. I also spent a lot of time on the social media website Reddit, reading posts about shoe trees around the world, and looking at comments to try to understand different themes of meaning on a large scale. One commenter on a post about a shoe tree in Ontario, Canada, gave the best advice when they said, all right, someone count them. And count them we did. My amazing field team and I, we documented activity at the tree over the course of 1 year, collecting physical coordinates of objects on the ground on an east-west baseline. In 2023, objects were assessed in the tree from the ground by documenting limb location, and in 2024 we accessed them via ladder. All items were returned to the tree after data was collected. I also made multiple spot visits to the tree throughout the year to record observations. We collected data on shoe type, size by gender, which was determined by tag information and shoe style, weathering and wear levels, and special attributes. And then we categorized them into activity use profiles, broken down into athletic, casual, work, outdoor, and dress shoes. We wanted to understand how objects were distributed at the site, the demographics of the people using the site, the rate of shoe destruction, and the potential for shoes, soles, and other objects to enter the archaeological record. In total, we documented 278 objects, 246 shoes, 23 soles, and 9 items in the other category, which consists of things like a religious candle, a car bumper, and a couple pairs of sport goggles. Some fun observations. There were 3 more right shoes than left shoes, and there were many lightly worn, almost brand new shoes. In 2024, there was a 20% increase in shoes on the ground, and a 240% increase in shoe soles on the ground, which had likely fallen from shoes that are still in the tree. While this sounds like a lot, the increase in whole shoes was far less than we thought, because we had had a wild weather year that included a rare tropical storm. So looking at environmental impacts, this chart shows the level of degradation, with dark blue being high, medium blue being medium, and light blue being low. Shoes on the ground have the highest amount of overall structural weathering, which results in complete disintegration, while shoes in the tree have more of a varied weathering pattern. The shoes in the trees tend to lose their soles first, which may account for why there was such a large increase in shoe soles compared to whole shoes on the ground, but there may be another reason for this. There appears to be an element of stewardship happening in this tree. Most people tie their shoes together and then fling them into the tree, but over time shoes are being stripped of their laces and tied to each other and other objects to create strings of shoes, sort of like a mobile, and you can see that in the image on the left. The motorcycle helmet in the image on the right was observed in October 2023, and it was removed in January 2024, but the boots it was tied to weren't discarded to the ground, they were hung on a new limb. This well-worn leather boot was on the ground in 2023, and it was back in the tree in 2024. We saw this happen firsthand when that almost brand new pair of leather Ralph Lauren polo dress shoes in the image on the right, they were on the ground on our first day of field work in 2024, and they were hanging back in the tree when we arrived again the next morning. There's very little trash in the site, and it's mostly contained to the area directly next to the road. The site's active and it's loved. When I look to Victor Turner's concepts, I see this as the archaeological expression of communitas, where people who might not normally connect due to diverse backgrounds form a community inside a liminality centered around a ceremonial act. In this case, hanging shoes on a tree. So who's in this group of shoe hangers? Many locals believe the tree is being used by Pacific Crest trail hikers and high school kids, both who might be leaving their shoes to commemorate what Victor Turner would label a rite of passage, such as engaging in a 2,600-mile hike or graduating high school and moving into adulthood. Some also believe the tree is being used by off-roaders and locals who may be participating as an active community or as connection to each other in the landscape. All of these groups and social themes are common in the many Reddit posts I sorted through about shoe trees around the world. So comparing these themes to the data, I started by looking at the individual. I found that the tree leans towards a male influence, with the most common shoe being a men's casual shoes in size 12, followed by gender neutral shoes, and then shoes for women and kids. The top brands were Converse and Vans, which fits the casual use profile. So I looked to the rest of the activity profiles to see which group might fit local conceptions of tree users. The athletics profile is 26% of the assemblage. This is a mixed profile. It includes shoes for running, hiking, and walking, and there are very few common brands used by PCT hikers. However, there are eyewitness accounts from PCT trail angels that confirm hiker use, meaning they are using the tree, but they're not the only ones. When looking at off-roaders, shoes that were definitely used for off-road activity, like motocross boots, they make up 7% of the assemblage. But a stronger argument for this group can be made when we look at objects in the other category, like the motorcycle helmet we saw a couple slides back, and a couple pairs of sports goggles. One that was associated with a memorial candle to someone or something named Tonka. It should be noted that shoes in the work category that make up 12% of the assemblage, they include shoes like steel-toe boots that could be used for off-road activity. Further assessment of off-road wear is in progress, as well as for shoes in the dress category. As for high school students, casual shoes are the most prevalent type found at the site at 47%. All the popular brands among high school students were represented, and some local residents have observed high school students using the tree. That said, casual shoes are ubiquitous. I interviewed one shoe tree user named Lindsay Boney, who travels the country with her dog Avery. She deposited the pair of Converse in the image on the right, which are shoes that could have easily been attributed to high school students. When I asked her why she hung the shoe, she said, "I stumbled upon that tree by accident and loved the idea of adding to it as memorabilia of my time traveling and in Ocotillo Wells. Shelter Valley locals may also be adding to the casual assemblage." Julia Beman says, "I've got quite a few pairs to add to that tree. It feels more than just putting old shoes on the tree. It feels more like adding a little piece of myself to the history of the area." Land management, their land manager's current approach as a hands-off approach at the San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree has been effective, since social connection to the site has mitigated major environmental impacts. But when expressions of communitas grow too large, it can lead to increased acts in structure. And I posit over actions to maintain structure are why shoe trees tend to reestablish themselves in a larger capacity when they're removed. It tips the balance required to maintain liminality, and it threatens the emotional connection to the site as a place. Alternatively, in areas where shoe trees have become overgrown, like the Rice Road shoe installation in Needles, California, additional structures may be required in the form of organized volunteer stewardship to balance things out. An interesting test to this theory occurred on this Wednesday, when I learned that the San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree had been cleared of shoes on February 23rd. But as of March 4th, there's at least 7 pairs of shoes back in the tree. Sorry. So in conclusion, our work over the last year didn't connect the tree to one group, but rather all of the groups and more. Land management strategies are effective, but shoe soles are likely entering the archaeological record, which may require special intervention at some point. Understanding the archaeology at the San Felipe Valley Shoe Tree and sites like it might help us gain a fresh perspective on what it means to live in our current society. It might help us spot areas of liminality and acts of communitas in the archaeological record, and strike a better balance between structure and anti-structure when managing public lands. Research on this project is ongoing, and future projects might look to compare assemblages in other locations, conduct ethnographic research, and assess other shoe trees. So I thank you all for letting me share my super weird research project with you. And I want to send a big thank you to my field crew who's here, and everyone at California State Parks, and my professor, Dr. Malkovich, for her support.
So good.